one of the other things that the experts say, and I think this is probably the key to paying off debt and accelerating the process of paying off debt, is that once you've started, let's say, like you say, you mentioned the small holes and the big holes. I think in the real life example, if it was a boat, I'd probably tackle the big holes first. But I think
of course.
in debt, it makes sense, right? In debt, it makes a lot of sense. So once you've paid off that small hole, just to kind of keep it to your analogy, start focusing the same amount that you would have paid off on that small hole on the next one on top of what you would have included. So let's say, for example, you have 3 different debts. The one is $500 a month, the other one is $1,000 a month, and the other one is $2,000 a month. Pay off the 500, still continue obviously paying the 1,000 and the 2,000 as well. But then once you've paid off the 500, take that money that monthly installment would have been, let's say it was $150.
Yes.
And include that onto your next targeted payment, the $1,000.
Yes. Absolutely.
So you do the $1,000 plus what was paid off on the 500. That way you build that momentum.
Hey everyone, welcome to the RLT podcast, where we share some real life tools, tips, and tricks to help you not only discover, but also reach your ultimate goals. What's up everyone? Welcome back to the Real Life Tips podcast. This is episode number 24, and we are so glad to have you guys back here with us to join us in on another episode. I'm your host, Mono.
As usual, you're joined by Leon. Welcome back, everyone. Stoked to be here, as usual, bringing you some information on a topic, on something that we decided a lot of people might have a problem with, and we're going to discuss the problem at length and maybe give some tips on how to resolve it. I think tonight I'm going to be out of my depth a little bit. I'm going to rely on you to bring a bit of gospel to this, because I'm a little bit more on the guilty by association side here than I am a fixer of this situation. But I do understand the problem, and I know that a lot of people are facing this challenge on a daily basis. I think in this day and age that we are in right now, this is a very relevant topic. And yeah, what better time to discuss it than tonight?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Leon. And you know what? It's actually been such a great journey over the last couple of months that we've been on the show. And we've actually just analyzed some of the feedback that we've gotten from friends, family, some of our listeners. A ton of our listeners have been saying that they want more content. So I think just before we get into the topic tonight, I want to pose the question to you guys out in the audience. I mean, we're here for you. And that's the only reason that we're doing this, is to share some insights, share some of the knowledge, and share some of the research. So really what we're doing is we're running a poll at the moment to find out which of our listeners are interested in hearing more about us. So we're thinking about perhaps bringing in another episode during the week. So currently, if you know us and if you know the show, you've probably realized by now that we release a brand new episode every Monday, and we're looking at bringing in a midweek episode to sort of, just spice things up, bring in additional topics, additional content. So yeah, please head over to rltstudios.com/show24. We're running a poll there at the moment, so please give us your feedback. It's literally just going to take you about 5 seconds to fill in the quick 2 questions. Number 1, would you like to hear more of us, or is one show more than enough in a week? And number 2, what is your preferred length for our episodes? Because we really want to try and accommodate you guys. We don't really know what your day looks like, how you listen to our shows. Do you listen to it at home? Do you listen to it on your drive to work, on your drive home? How much time do you have available? And what is sort of the best time limit for the episode? So please head over to rltstudios.com/show24 and let us know. Let us know what you guys think would be the best thing for us to proceed in. So absolutely, Leon, give us a little bit of an insight as to what the topic is for tonight. I think you sort of sneaked it in there, but please tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, I was quite vague. There's a lot of things I have problems with that will resonate with people. So, tonight's topic of discussion is a very, very bad. It's the capital D word. Like the D swear word in many relationships, in many people's lives, and so on. And that's just plain and simple debt. DEBT. That's like a word that I think have destroyed many people's lives. That's a word that keeps a lot of people out of sleep, keep them worrying at night. That's a word that I've seen people lose half of their livelihoods and their houses and, cars and material belongings just because they overindulge. And we're going to discuss the concept of debt tonight. I think firstly we'll probably talk about why we fall prey to this. And I mean, I'm very, very, very guilty of the whole debt concept. And, I've indulged in this many, many times in my life. Sometimes to great effect and sometimes to very detrimental effect. And, then we'll talk about what can one actually do if you're already in it to try and get some resolution, or what's the approach to take, or maybe just some tips. And we're not going to come from a factual subject matter expert kind of point of view. We're not financial advisors. I wish if I was, I would not need to do an episode like this. So we're pretty much going to talk out of our own experience and little things and tricks and bobs and nicks that we do that worked for us. I mean, a lot of it comes down to just recognizing that there's a problem and start talking to people that might be doing better. I think that's enough of an intro from my side. I think we'll hand over the mic to Mr. Debt Free.
I wish. I think we all wish we were there. No, Leon, I think it's the best time for us to address this topic, primarily because, to be honest, like when I thought about doing this topic with you here tonight, the first thing that came to mind was, I'm just so grateful. I'm really, really grateful to be in a situation where I still have a job, where I'm still able to pay my bills every single month during a pandemic situation where I absolutely know I've seen the devastation, I've seen the after effects of it, and how many people are suffering at the moment, can't pay the bills, lost their job, struggling to find a new job as well, and it's really tough out there. So just a lot of gratitude. And for those people out there, maybe you're not dealing with it at the moment, but we've all been at that point in our lives where we've sort of overstepped the boundary of expenses and got caught up in the moment, maybe spent way too much, or maybe bought something that we weren't supposed to buy, that we knew we couldn't afford, but we took the risk anyways, and then we suffered the after effects of it. Perhaps you're sitting in that situation at the moment. So absolutely, from my point of view as well, I've been there on a small scale. I've been caught up in some really, really messy situations and dire situations where I had to quickly make a decision, and I was fighting for survival, and I had to take out a loan, and we'll get into some of the crazy stories. But I know that it spirals out of control real quick. So Leon, I think tonight is gonna be really one of those ones where not only will we share a lot of insights and a lot of stories and maybe some embarrassing stories, because I think that deep down inside we all feel a little bit of embarrassment when we hit a situation where we're constantly paying off debt. But we're hopefully going to share some of the good research, some of the good expert advice that we've come across, and some of the things that have worked for us.
Yeah, I think we're going to try and keep it very practical and very true to self. So, the show is all about our life journey and experiences and things that we've seen, and then we throw a little bit of factual content in there just for substance, just so that there's no critic out there that's going to go and quote us or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, debt, I've had my deal of debt in my days. I mean, maybe we'll start with where it started for me. The biggest issue that I found coming out of varsity and into like the paying world and earning a salary is that first and foremost, your first salary sucks. Even though I thought, out of varsity, I'm going to start on a solid pay. It wasn't really like that. And the second problem is your pay sucks, but now because you've got pay, you can get access to credit, right? So you can live above your means, and it's so enticing. And there's this thing that the world does, and we're going to talk about that throughout, like the problematic and the reason we fall for debt. But there's this thing, it's called marketing, and putting products in front of your face the whole day long, everywhere you look. If you go on online shopping, how bad is it to just go through like daily deals or weekly deals or whatever flavor of sales type of buying you guys do out there, and just do a lot of impulse buying. And that's, I think, the core root problem. So for me, I actually, I started, as I said, in my professional career in quite a low position salary. I really enjoyed playing video games, and, I really wanted an Xbox. And the problem was that the Xbox pretty much cost my startup salary, and I just couldn't see how would I ever save that amount of money. Because everyone will tell you, yeah, but save it and buy it. Yeah, but, that's the thing. By the time I've got the money, the next Xbox would be out already. I don't earn enough to kind of save at all. I'm literally like living paycheck to paycheck. So I went and I got one of those really bad debt companies. So I'm not even talking about like from your own bank or anything, like those real bad over-the-counter debt guys that you can pretty much sign up for at the shop. I won't name the company's name. I was on the brink of doing it right there. But yeah, it's one of those where, they'll give you like, in South Africa, we work in Rand. So that's like 15 Rand will give you $1. So they will like give you 5,000 or 6,000 Rand on a card, which is not a lot. But that was enough to buy an Xbox plus a few games. And not only did they, tell me, listen, the Xbox is, for example, I'm just using numbers now, let's say 3,500 Rand at the time. They'll tell you, you qualify for 7,000 Rand on this card. And I'll say, yep, I'll take the 7,000. I don't,
Wow.
Even though I want the 3,500 1,000 Rand console, let me just go for the 7,000. And then suddenly you walk with this nice heavy card in your bag, in your wallet, and you're like, geez, man, now everything is screaming at me like you can take it, and you can take it right now. You can literally put it in the trolley, go to the teller, swipe that little card, and just make it out the store with your purchase. But these debt companies, these specific ones, are the worst because they are very short-term lenders, so they give extremely high interest rates. And I mean, we're not going to talk about what that is in the show. I'm hoping that we don't have to go through that. But basically, the cost of lending is extremely high on these cards. So you'll pretty much pay back almost 3 times the amount that you borrowed by, let's say, 36 months in 3 years or whatever. So I bought the Xbox, spent another $2,000 or whatever on some games as well. So I went out there with like a 5,000 Rand purchase, which at the time was pretty much what I was earning. And I felt well chuffed. I promise you, I did not have buyer's remorse. I know the people always say, yeah, you're going to buy something and have buyer's remorse. I had buyer's joy, I promise you. I enjoyed my Xbox. I played it every day, and I didn't see any remorse for it. But I did start feeling the pinch as soon as I started paying off. And for some reason, the worst part for me, and this was the reality check I had to endure in the beginning, is I would pay it off and kind of feel like, wow, that's a lot of money that I need to pay per month. And then if I look at the statement, I was making zero dent in the like capital amount that I borrowed. I was literally just paying off interest. And these cards are specifically designed in such a form that if you take a 36-month loan, for example, you'll pay back the capital interest in the last 6 months. The first 30 months will only be interest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's how they configure it.
And don't you feel that it's these little things that creep up on you as well? It's not like you took that and you said, let's go spend the entire $5,000 on one big massive TV or something. You might have spent a little bit of a portion or quite a big portion of that on one item, but it's the adding on top of that of other debt as well. Because now you've got that one card. But I don't know about you, as I progressed through, and again, this was also straight out of school, had my first job and all that. I also went through this phase where I discovered loans and personal loan. Well, not just personal, but personal loans and buying things on credit. And that was honestly at the time the coolest thing ever, because that meant that even if I made $3,000 a month or $5,000 a month, that I can go and I could buy, I don't know, a big TV that costs $10,000, and I can actually just pay that off. That's going to cost me like $200 a month or something like that. The problem with that is, though, that these things add up, because I started off, and luckily I didn't go and I bought myself a big TV or anything. What I did is I went and I bought essential appliances. So I went and I said, I need a washing machine. Let me get a washing machine. I was like, okay, I need a fridge. Let me get a fridge. All right, what else do I need? I need a microwave. All right, cool. I didn't even go to the extent where I got a dishwasher. I mean, I was still trying to still live within my means. And when you're standing there, when you're paying, when you're swiping the card, you do the calculations and you just think, it's just 200.
Yeah,
It's only 200
Yeah.
rand. What is 200 rand? You know what? It's fine. If I make 5K a month, 200 bucks isn't going to touch me. And then the next time you go and you need something, you buy that on credit. Now, fast forward a few years later and you start opening things like clothing accounts.
Yes.
And those things start adding up as well, because clothes are, I don't know about where you guys live, but clothes are so expensive. Like, honestly, it's such an expensive thing to do, is to go proper clothes shopping, get a couple of t-shirts, get a jean or two, and I promise you, those clothing accounts and everything, they add up. I think I don't even have to try and convince you guys of this, because I'm
already
pretty
know.
sure that you know exactly, you know exactly what I mean by that, right? Yeah. So, you know what the biggest problem is that debt snowballs. I think it goes without saying. We all are quite aware of it, and that we need to sort of make sure that we put a pin in it every now and then, or review our budgets, and just make sure that we don't have any unnecessary debt. One thing I do want to get into a little bit, Leon, from your point of view, because we've been mates now for quite some time, and we've shared a lot of personal chats about finances and stuff like that. I know that you were struggling with debt at some point, and we're talking about large amounts. Can you just share with us the feeling? Because I've never experienced that to the full extent that I think at the level that you experienced it at. What are the sort of feelings that came upon you, that you encountered, that you were fighting off the whole time?
I'll go into this. So, and this is going to probably hit a lot of nerves out there, because there's people probably listening now that's going through where I've been. And at some stage, I had so much debt that, for example, on credit cards, the guys that are listening now with credit cards know this one fact about credit cards, is that you can spend it and then pay it back up. And then if you do that in the right time, your lending is almost kind of free, because you'll get like 53 days interest-free lending and that kind of stuff. The problem is when you go past that, because unfortunately, I don't know, for me, creating debt became a bit of an impulse thing. Like, I wouldn't even think about it, because I was managing it in my head. I was managing it well. Because I kept paying it back every month. I would go in a couple thousand and then pay it off every month, and not do the like 36 months and stuff like that. I got better eventually. But then at one point it started taking a turn where I had to I had to borrow a lot of money out of a credit card. And I looked at the minimum payment that I would need to make in order to just not go get debt counseling and that kind of stuff, or get into any kind of debt trouble. And I thought, that's not too bad. And I went and I did that. But then for some reason, life aligns these pitfalls and stuff, and stars and everything align, and life gives you a couple of slaps around. And I did that at like the worst possible time. There was a lot of other expenses that I incurred in the same time frame. And suddenly I was completely smothered, to the point where what I thought was the minimum payment was actually just the interest on the minimum payment. So the minimum payment was actually about 5 or 6 times what I thought it was. I misunderstood the way that they explained it, because again, I'm stupid basically when it comes to these kind of things. I don't read through it. I see the end goal and I can do it, and I can just get it right now, and then I do it, pull the trigger. And the biggest problem is that I started suffering from heavy anxiety. And I would literally think of how I would start losing stuff, and how I would literally eventually grind to a complete halt. Eventually, I started spending more than I'm earning. So that's where the wagon tips over, is when you start needing more money per month than what you can bring into the household. And so this is fast forward a couple of credit cards. a couple of loans, and a house and cars and all those kind of things. So we're talking about, now we're talking in the couple million of debt. All right. So where it gets a lot worse. Okay, some of it is good stuff like a house and, even a car, even though it depreciates, it's not the worst buy in the world. But a lot of it was stupid debt, like just real impulsive, stupid debt that kept going on for a long period of time. And I'm that type of person, I got a little bit addicted to just buying stuff and getting new stuff. And I would manage it really well. But then, as I said, if life starts raining peaches your way and, you start incurring more costs, like we went through some health issues as well with one of the kids and stuff that cost a lot of money, and you start really, really running out of space in your budget. That's when you realize, oof, what do I do now? I don't know where to go. Like I'm completely trapped.
Did you feel like, the number was so big that you didn't really mind adding on a couple of $100 here and there?
Yes.
And well, I would assume so,
Yeah.
right? Because you're like, because no, the reason I'm asking is because that's sort of the same mentality that I sometimes have with my credit card as well. If I see that I still owe a couple of $100, well, not dollars, but let's call it dollars, just to make it simple for you US folk out there, and for the rest of the people in the world, it just makes it easier to sort of translate. But if I see that I've got a couple of $100 outstanding on my credit card, adding on a few things doesn't feel like such a big deal. Did you get to a point where you started noticing that this is pushing you further into like the snowball effect? Because I can imagine this could snowball. The bigger the number grows, the more little things you add on top of it, and the bigger it grows again, right?
100%. Now, you actually touch on I think the core problem is the fact that at some stage, so as much as there were some big bulk purchases in there were also a lot of small things that just kept going, because you look, like you said, you look at this big number, you have this perception of, listen, if I add on, let's say the number is 50,000 Rand or $5,000. If I add on another 1,000 Rand to that 50,000 Rand, or another $100 to that $5,000, that's going to make no difference. That's not going to make any difference. Let's go and do this outing, or let's go and do this dinner, or let's just quickly buy this nice, shiny new boots for my wife, or whatever the case might be. The problem is that becomes very easy to justify. And as soon as something becomes easy, you do it regularly. And by the time, and that's exactly what happened to me, by the way. I had a few big things that threw me into huge debt, but the amount of credit that I had was still more than that. So I was already like in so much debt, but I still had so much credit left because my credit record was so good, and the banks just kept giving me credit when I asked for it. It's They made their money.
It's one of those crazy
it's
things.
It's still a business for them, so they still made their money. I paid them back. They saw that I'm pretty much an interest payer, so they're borrowing me money, and I'm pretty much just paying them for the money that I'm borrowing, and I'm never giving back the capital money, but I'm at least paying for borrowing the money. And that's the worst thing, is when you're actually just paying off interest and you're not even trying to aim at that capital. And that's where I was for like 4 years. The debt that I was paying off was purely interest debt. It was none of the capital ever, because I couldn't go that far. I couldn't get that deep into the debt. And that's the thing. So I had such a big amount of debt and still so much credit left that I scaled down on like the size and the big purchases, but then I started just regularly living it up, like going out a lot, because it's small things like, let's go out for a night. Let's go do something nice tomorrow. Let's go, I don't know, fly quickly to Cape Town and back for the weekend. Smaller things, even though, okay, that's a bit big, but you know what I mean? Like small things, but more regular things. And then again, because you're looking at this big number and there's this huge total capacity there, when you do these small little incremental things, they don't seem so bad, right? And the frequency of that went up to a point where I went into all of the credit that I had, every cent. There was nothing left. And then the minimum payment was so large that I would literally be month on month, and
Yeah,
I would
just paying off that number, not even getting into or getting ahead of your debt at all.
No, not at all. So pretty much just paying for the privilege of having debt, if you want to put it like
so
that.
The thing is, and I'm asking this question because I think I relate to a certain extent to that as well. I mean, I've never experienced it on that level, but I certainly have experienced it, I think, early in my... Maybe I was just lucky, or maybe not lucky. Maybe I was just unlucky enough to have felt it at a very, very young age. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but I moved out the house when I was 18, and I already started making debts and all of that kind of stuff. And I got myself into some pretty pressing situations. And I think I went and I took out a small loan, a very, very small loan, to sort of catch up on my rent that was outstanding, to catch up on some of the water and electricity that was outstanding, the utilities and all those type of things, and to go and buy a carpet for my lounge and a coffee table because my flat was so empty at the time. And really, I got to a point where I wasn't earning enough money to be able to start paying that loan back. And it spiraled out of control so quickly. Within a couple of months of taking out that loan, I had to move back into my mom's house. I seriously, I got the fright of my life because I was like, dude, you just had the best opportunity. You were doing okay. I was out of the house for 3 years already. I felt like I was sort of coping and all that. But you're right. Like, there's so many unexpected expenses that pile on top of those sort of conscious decision debts that you get yourself into as well.
But the nice thing is you experienced that at a very good time in your life where you can course correct.
Yeah, and at a low number enough as well.
Exactly, because you had like lessons learned, quickly moved back. I experienced this at a point in time where I also thought I might lose everything, but losing it when you've got a wife and kids, it's like soul crushing, like, you know what I mean? So I think it comes back to one of our episodes where we said, if you fell fast, right? So if you need to figure out how much debt can burn, maybe do it when you're young. But that's the thing. I was more cautious with my debt when I was younger, even though I bought an Xbox and some games that was worth the amount that I was earning in a month.
Yeah.
That sticks out like the one bad purchase that I made. The other stuff wasn't that heavy. But yes, like later in life, it got out of control.
Yeah, look, I mean, I still went and I still made debt after I recovered from that, seemingly really bad situation. I mean, even though we're talking about small numbers in my case, it still would have had the exact same effect that it would have had on you. So one of the things that I actually learned from that, and I think this is why we wanted to have this discussion here tonight, is not just touching on the experiences that we have, but I'm sure that as we go through these things, a lot of you guys are sitting there in the audience and you're probably laughing or thinking about a specific time in your life when you made stupid decisions as well and got yourself into pretty bad situations. But what I really wanted to do with this episode here tonight, Leon, is understand sort of where this is all coming from and then look at how can we go about addressing such a situation, because I know that the debt that you still, like, you're sorted out everything else, the major ones in your life and all that, but we've had this chat recently and there's still a couple of things that you are looking to accomplish within the next couple of months and, to be focused on solely. And one of the questions you came to me with is, where do I start? Because you've got a couple of accounts that you want to start targeting, that you want to get settled. And I really wanted to find out from you, why is it that you haven't started, or what's stopping you, so that we can sort of work out a strategy for you. And I think the best way to do that, and we've spoken about this, is to take it one account at a time.
Yeah.
Taking it one account at a time. And that's just really something that has worked for me in my past as well. On these little accounts. So I started really concentrating on a lot of the debt that I made in my post this really bad experience of mine. And I started keeping a very close eye on it, and I started targeting one account at a time. And that really just felt like the best way for me to start accomplishing those goals. And even though, because if you combined all of your accounts. And this is the one problem that you highlighted to me, is you look at your debt. You don't look at it as I've got 5 accounts at 5 different places. You sort of summarize it all and you're like, you know what, I'm in so much debt at the moment. I don't even know where to start paying it off. Hey?
Yeah, that's actually very, very true. At some stage throughout, debt and having multiple accounts with different interest rates and different lending terms and so on, you just look at the bulk figure and it feels unimaginably large and you don't even know where to start, right? So I've obviously now through the years, I've started tackling certain accounts. I still have a long ways to go. But I'm at that stage now where it's a good time for me to figure out what is going to be the most impactful way to tackle the debt, because it's not just one account, right? And I think a good place to start just before we even tackle debt is to stop making debt, right? So get out of the spending habit totally. And for me, that was the biggest issue. My cause of my debt was in some cases for needed stuff, for stuff that was necessary. Like, for example, if a geyser bursts or whatever in your roof and you need to pay in a very inconvenient time of the month where there's no more lucrativity left and you need to pay a lump sum in order to get the insurance company to fix it. Those kind of things, yes, you need to. Then if debt is your only way, that is what you need to do, right? You need to get your boiler back up. But the thing that worked for me, and the reason why I am a little ways down my debt already, is because I stopped doing the spending thing, like where I would go every day. And I think, again, there's a lot of people. The reason I say this every time I say these things is I can already see these people grinning in the car or maybe shying away from us and thinking, shit, that's me, So I know there's a lot of people out there that's got this problem, and that's why these companies do it. In South Africa, we've got a very popular online shop, and I know worldwide, everyone, just to keep it simple, will stick to Amazon. They run their daily deals, their tech deals, their baby deals. They do these very, very smart marketing things that makes you go there every day and check in on what's there to buy. That's a deal, and because it's a deal and it's a steal, you think it's okay. You think that no, but I just saved money. Because
and they make it so simple.
Oh yeah,
and they make it so simple because you just save your credit card details in there.
Yeah, it's so easy. I mean, I don't really go to grocery stores anymore. I do it all online, and they deliver the stuff to the house. It's just become so convenient to click on stuff, and now you've got that whole shop right in front of your face, right? And that's what got me. I don't want to say addicted, but let's be honest. I think I was a little bit addicted to just buying new stuff and gadgets and cool things and toys and so on. And I would always justify it in some way, shape or form. I'll think, yeah, but I bought this because I'm in, the information technology industry and I enjoy gadgets and it's part of a hobby or whatever. I'll find a way to justify the fact that I bought this item.
Yeah.
So the first step that you need to take before even worrying about how you're going to pay it all off is stop that. Like, I don't even know how to say it better, but just stop that notion. And, just stop buying stuff that you don't need. And again...
Well, stop looking.
Maybe...
If you could stop looking and break the habit of going onto those sites, I felt that really worked for me as well. Just to stay away from
that's a better way of saying it. Yeah, because... if you can't buy what you don't see. Most of the stuff that I made debt on, at least in my experience, was stuff that I don't need. It was things that I saw on that day, and I'm like, oh wow, this is something nice and shiny. Let me buy it. I've got the money. It's right there in my credit card. The credit card's got like a thing. I'll just pay it off, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that's the best approach of taking it as well. Leanne, I think that it's time to have a look at some of the research. What does the research say about debt? Because honestly, I mean, like, I can tell you all about what's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me as well. And we're probably getting to that in the real life tips section.
Yeah.
But I'm actually really interested in seeing hearing what some of the subject matter experts are saying out there. What is the best way to tackle these sort of accounts? Maybe you can share some of that insight.
All right. So I think one of the first things that the experts say is that you need to figure out how much debt you've got. You need to know what is that figure. You can't really start, I guess, focusing on paying it off if you have no clue how bad the situation is. And I mean, for myself, this makes a lot of sense because I know that at some stage I didn't really look at statements anymore. I didn't really look at budgets anymore. I just went month by month and I didn't really care because I knew it was bad. I didn't want to look at it. So they say that you need to actually start making a list of all the different debts that you have, include your creditors, everything that you've got, and then get the total amount of debt, the monthly payment, the interest rates, and the due dates. Yeah, I think the one thing they didn't include here is also the terms. So how many months you still have left on paying it, or whether it was a long term or a short term. Obviously, you're not going to tackle your house first because that's like a very long term debt, very low interest, those kind of things. You want to start with consolidating and figuring out what is the total amount of debt, where's the biggest interest rates, and then what are the due dates and what's the total monthly payments that you're paying off. And that kind of makes sense to me. I mean, a lot of this I think I've already kind of started applying, but yeah, I don't know if I'm not there yet.
It's very interesting because I think that's probably one of the first things that I would have given anyone advice on as well. Is I always see it as this: you're in a boat and you notice that there's a leak in the boat. And the first thing that you try and do is, maybe if it's a small leak, you would ignore it at first because you're in the ocean and there's so much water splashing everywhere. You might not even really realize that you've got a leak in the boat. And then, maybe a couple of hours later, you notice another bigger hole and another one and another one. And before you know it, the boat is filling up with water and you're going down. And that's sort of the visualization that I've always had about debt. So absolutely, by saying that, identify the debt first or know how much debt you have and all that. For me, that's saying identify the holes in your boat. Identify the big ones, identify the small ones. Know what you're dealing with and then start planning it. And no wonder, that strategy has worked for me as well in my life, but just on a much smaller scale. I had to go and actually count pennies because I jumped from one job to another job where I was actually getting paid less. So all of a sudden I had to quickly, move things around and make sure that I've got money.
I've been there. Yes.
I know. You can
That's
actually
painful.
relate with that as well.
That
it's
is
tough.
extremely painful. Yeah.
So identifying the holes in the boat first, and then you're sort of reshuffling things to find a strategy. And if it's small enough, what I actually did is I went not just to find a strategy to identify the debt or identify the holes that I can patch, but I identified the ones that, and I don't know, this is just my opinion. I actually identified the smallest holes first. I know it doesn't make any sense. Maybe because I didn't suffer from like enormous amounts of debt.
No, it does. Actually, I think in debt it does.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
think in debt it does.
Because it just feels, it's like a dopamine hit that you get every time that you settle an account. So for me, that's one of the things that just worked. As I actually tackled the smallest account first. I patched that tiny little hole, and then I went on to the next one, But I was really, really aggressive with this. I actually went so as far as to actually move into a smaller place because I was still younger and I was single, and I didn't have a wife and kids and everything to worry about as well. So I could do that. So I went and I took a very, very aggressive approach. And I went and I started plugging in one hole after the next, up until the point where I managed to pay off my car. And that's usually a very, very, it's quite a long-term goal for us that we usually set for ourselves.
For many, yeah.
And yeah, exactly. So that was my end goal. I was tackling one account after the next account after the next account. Am I debt-free today? Absolutely not. We'll chat a little bit more about that in the next couple of minutes as well. There's a reason that I'm not debt-free. I feel that there is good debt and there's bad debt. That might actually just be a topic for a whole another discussion as well, because we can talk all day about good debt versus bad debt. But the point is, I managed to get to a point where I was pretty much as close as one can get to debt-free, besides paying rent and stuff. I had paid off car, had paid off all of my bills, everything. And I was in a very, very comfortable situation. So to me, that was sort of the strategy as well.
Okay, so one of the other things that the experts say, and I think this is probably the key to paying off debt and accelerating the process of paying off debt, is that once you've started, let's say, like you say, you mentioned the small holes and the big holes. I think in the real life example, if it was a boat, I'd probably tackle the big holes first. But I think
of course.
in debt, it makes sense, right? In debt, it makes a lot of sense. So once you've paid off that small hole, just to kind of keep it to your analogy, start focusing the same amount that you would have paid off on that small hole on the next one on top of what you would have included. So let's say, for example, you have 3 different debts. The one is $500 a month, the other one is $1,000 a month, and the other one is $2,000 a month. Pay off the 500, still continue obviously paying the 1,000 and the 2,000 as well. But then once you've paid off the 500, take that money that monthly installment would have been, let's say it was $150,
Yes.
and include that onto your next targeted payment, the $1,000.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
you do the $1,000
Very
plus
important.
what was paid off on the 500.
I love
that way you build that momentum. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely, I
Does
love
make
that.
sense.
Yes, I haven't actually thought about that, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's no point in you paying off an account and then using that money to subscribe to a Netflix account or something silly that you
Yeah.
don't need. You know,
That's true, and I think that's what a lot of us do.
yeah, we see it as freed up money that we can use now for something else.
I can use it.
Or we can spend that now on partying every weekend or something like that. No, very, very important. That's very insightful.
Yeah, so basically, just refocus the money until you've paid the debt off to a point where you can start living it up again. I think the big problem with debt, and that's the problem I'm struggling with, is I try and do that, but you're quite right. Once you free up that one account, you're like, oof, I've got that extra money in my bank now. Finally, now I can go and do one more dinner a week than usual. But they are quite right. If you can actually refocus that same energy that you've now gained from your first debt that you closed off onto the second debt, and then do the same again and compound your second debt, the amount that you now focused on that debt, onto the third debt, and so on you go, I think you'd actually get to your goal of extremely fast if you can do it like that. Again, very idealistic. I don't think anyone can stick to that 100%, but at least if you try and you try and keep to that, you'll probably do a lot better than most.
Yeah, absolutely. Leon, I think let's move into the real life tips section of this episode. It's been really, really insightful just listening to what the experts say. And absolutely, I think that we've proven that. I've most definitely that's proven true in my own personal life as well. So just to get into the real life tip section, Leon, kick it off. Tell me from your own personal view, you've dealt with debt. You've come you've really come from a suffering sort of background when it came to your emotionally, financially suffering, and it really weighed on you. I could see it in your face every single time that we had this discussion in the past.
Yeah.
Tell us, what is the one tip or two tips that you would want to leave with the audience here
I'm going to
today?
have to roll it up into a bit of a almost it's a tip, but it's just kind of like advice, right? The thing that one needs to do is firstly acknowledge the problem, all right? Then stop doing whatever is causing the problem, all right? Because you have control over that. You don't necessarily have control over how much income you get and how bad your debt is and your expenses going out. So if that is the case, you need to either find a way to generate more income if it's that bad. If it's so bad that you can't make the books work anymore. There are other options like debt counseling, but we all know that's going to stick on you forever like a bad stench, and unfortunately you won't get credit anymore and those kind of things. So either, I don't know, find another means of income, try and change jobs, get a second income or a third income or something like that. And then, so that's the one tip. Figure out that you've got the problem, stop causing the problem, and make sure that you can start chiseling at the problem. Don't just stay in that place where I was, where you literally just covering like the interest rates or the interest charges and none of the capital. And if you do that, obviously anyone knows this, the interest doesn't stay constant. It becomes more and more and more because the cost of lending and interest rates fluctuate and all that stuff. So eventually you slowly just keep being dragged backwards. Now, if your income situation doesn't change, you'll never get to start fixing that problem. So that's the second tip. Find a way to get into a positive income situation so that you can start fighting the debt. If it means sell a car, sell a car. If it means move into a smaller place, move into a smaller place. If it means change your job, change your job. And go for a higher salary job, or just get a second income if that's possible. But you need to get into a positive situation where you can, no matter how small it is, to, like we said, start focusing on those small accounts, compound that amount, put it on the second account, and so on you go until you get that relief, like, okay, I can breathe again, Then it's just going to start feeling like accomplishments. You'll start getting goosebumps every time you get through an account. Like you said, that dopamine hit. When you start getting those accounts off your shoulder, there's actually nothing that feels more freeing than that. And knowing that every step you take in the forward direction, chiseling at the debt, is better than the step you were at, right? Like yesterday. That's pretty much my tip. So I know that's not really like one small one-liner.
It's good.
But it's I think that kind of summarizes my life at some point in the past. And I'm very, very happy to say that it's not that bad anymore. Still not there yet, but it's not that bad.
Well, you know what? At the end of the day, lessons learned, man. You know what to look out for now. You've gotten yourself into those situations. You've gotten yourself out of those situations. I think you pretty much hit the nail on its head with your tips, Leon. I don't feel that there's much more I can really contribute to that besides just revising that and maybe adding on one additional one in there. So what you said is, first, number one, identify the problem or figure out what the problem is and stop it. All right. Number two, get a positive income situation, because if you're sitting in a bad situation where you can't get all of that debt paid off, then of course you need to figure out a way out of that. The third one that I would like to add on top of that is to, once you get out of that, constantly, maybe you're out of it already, maybe you've just recently come out of it, constantly revisit your budget, revisit every single expense that you have going out of your account on a monthly basis. I'm not talking about, you stop at the garage, or you stop at the gas station and you swipe for a chocolate and a Coke or something like that. I'm talking about those recurring monthly expenses, those services that you sign up for, even if it's $20 here, $80 there, $60 there. There's a lot of them that you run into the hundreds. Some of them run into the thousands, depending on how rich you are.
Yeah, sure.
And you might not notice them. The point is that go and revisit them. Go revisit your budget and make sure that you're constantly aware of this. And the reason let me explain to you why that's my one tip that I want to leave you with, is because these things creep up on you. They really do. So you get out of that situation, and then before you know it, you end up back in it. Ask me, I've been there over and over again. So I regularly check my budget. I regularly check my expenses. I think, Leon, that's been some really, really insightful information. I think it's been a really great chat.
Yeah.
Long overdue as well for us to deep dive into the topic. And just before we close off, any last words from you?
Yeah, actually, this is more, I think, advice again than a tip. But the other good thing is, once you get out of this debt, you'll realize that, the money that you ended up spending every month paying off that debt is actually a substantial amount that you can now put into savings. And obviously, if you get into a positive savings situation, you don't need debt again. If you're going to have that money sitting in your own account, your own bucks, then you might not need that debt again. So the other thing is, once you pay off those debts, it's better to maybe close those accounts for good. Just get them out there, get away from the temptation. But there's just more and more that I think about as we go on. But I guess that's common sense as well. But I think that was a really, really great discussion. Just a quick reminder to the guys out there. As Manu mentioned in the beginning, we are busy running a poll on our website. Go have a look at the website. There's some interesting reading and stuff over there as well from our blog. But we are running a poll to figure out, do you want more of us, or is it okay? And also, is the length fine? Do you enjoy the long form 1 hour discussions? Would you like a 30-minute or a 15-minute, or maybe a combination? I don't know. So go to our website. It's rltstudios.com/show24. So it's rltstudios.com/show24. And there will be a pop-up on the right bottom of the screen that's going to ask you 2 different questions. Just firstly, yes, it's enough, or no, we'd like more. And secondly, 3 different length options. And that's it. It's going to take you like 2 to 5 seconds or whatever to complete. We'll be forever grateful, because if you want more of us, we'll make a plan to make more. If you don't like the length, we can do more sessions but shorter. You know, it's valuable information for us. That's pretty much it from me. Really enjoyed this chat. Marnie, take us out.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, as always, we really appreciate you guys. I really want to take this moment just to thank you all for tuning in on a weekly basis. We see you. We really do. We see the numbers. We see your support. We appreciate all the good feedback. Or even if you have bad feedback, give it to us. We want to know about everything. We appreciate you guys. So thank you all so much for supporting us. And we will see you again here next week. Until then, this is me signing off. Mono.
As usual, joined by Leon. Thank you very much for tuning in. Cheers.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We really hope that you have found inspiration or motivation from our content this far. If you want to get access to sneak previews to our upcoming shows on a weekly basis, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel or join our Facebook page, where we also share our blog posts and other great content from time to time. So head over to our Facebook and YouTube channels and feel free to share it with your friends so that they can also join you on the journey to success. Until next time, guys, cheers.